Mikhail Pizov, and I'm your moderator. It is a closed session to me because the topic that we're going to discuss at this panel, open budget and initiative budgeting as tools for improvement of budget expenditures efficiency. Over the past years, open government with the Ministry of Finance, with our expert community and the regions of Russia have been implementing a number of initiatives dedicated to increase the budget openness of budget process at all levels of the budget. And today I suggest we start with a pleasant mission and task and award the winners of the competition that we hold annually on submitting budgets for citizens. And I give the floor to our permanent partner, colleague, Minister of Finance of Russian Federation, Deputy Minister Alexei Lavrov, please. Nomination budget for citizens awarded winners of the competition project for submitted budgets for citizens in a clear form. It's held by a financial university under government of Russian Federation. Have two nominations. Physical person's diploma of the Moscow Financial Forum is awarded to the creative group representative of St. Petersburg State Economic University for joint project of popular dictionary of budget terminologies, Daria Yevseyeva, Viktor Kulikov, and Elena Firsova. The category of legal entities awarded Department of Finance of Bryansk region for the best budget for citizen to the law of budget 2017-2019. The diploma awarded to Deputy Governor of Bryansk, Galina Petushkova. Nomination development of initiative budgeting. That's another nomination and different competition awarded Ministry of Finance of the Republic of Bashkortostan, Minister of Finance of Republic Rida Subhankulova. Nomination Young Professionals. Rafael Sabayev is award of Head of Department of Incomes of Development of Ministry of Finance of City of Moscow. Thank you, Alexei. 5 years ago, in 2012, when we launched the Project Open Government, and we were thinking about how to make one of the tools of government budget open, transparent, and clear, federal and regional levels. These notions like initiative budget or budget for citizens were like probably very interesting but not practical instruments and tools that might be interesting to use but not always useful. So for the last 5 years, the situation significantly changed, and we see how these tools are implemented not only in the level of regions, and that most interesting and important at the level of municipalities, where the distance between government agencies, authorities, and regular citizens is less, and the requirements of people and budget related to the quality of environment. And the Republic of Bashkortostan has taken part in this discussion. Rustem Mardanov, Prime Minister of the government of Bashkortostan, is not the first to get involved in the open budget system project, but most rapidly was able to launch it. And now the budget for citizens is implemented, an initiative budget almost in all municipality of the Republic. So I'd like to start with a question to Rustem. How these tools of budget for citizen or open budget help improve efficiency of budget expenditures and make quality of expenditures higher, and priorities of state expenditures more clear for people, and in line with its requirements and demands, and also improve the level of credibility and trust of regular people how state resources are spent. Thanks. I would like to start traditionally this forum. All speakers start with congratulations to financiers. I'd like to join them, and also because in our republic, this widespread of this project started when we transferred it to the Ministry of Finance, and our Ministry of Finance is supervising this project. And we slightly changed the focus in terms of implementation of this project, having emphasized improving efficiency of using budget funds, the quality of state government services, and finally, as you said, Mikhail, increasing trust and credibility. A few words about milestones implementing this project in our republic. We are not the first to join in 2014. And first, we were very careful entering. We had a pilot project where we tried to implement it, and first of all, for underdeveloped territories, you can say even depressed territories, and try to understand whether it would provoke interest among citizens with more problems in various areas. So experience showed that it really brings good feedback and activity of people and citizens, and most important result, just to answer your question about most important, is involvement. And now if we estimate, you were right saying that have all municipalities taking part in this project. They prepare projects for competition and make application. So for competition 2017, we had 850 projects applied out of all municipalities, and selection was not passed by all, and only the winners were more than 450. But the activity is very fast and very good, and to confirm this engagement, I would like to give an example. In one of the municipalities, people wanted to change windows in the children's school of art, and they lost. The project didn't win, but so many people got involved already, and they were so motivated. Then they just decided, okay, and they just approached the crowdfunding platform and applied, and this crowdfunding they raised the needed amount of funds and implemented. For us, it's even better indicator that it allows to engage people actively. Another effect is actually improving efficiency of expenditures is achieved by various tools, and those present know most important is controls on the part of people, participants of the project, and in addition to that, it is achieved by the fact that some people contribute not the money when financing, but they take part themselves in the project and say, if you buy it for the money, it will be more expensive. It's better to do it themselves with the resources available, and as a result, it is more efficient and quality is better. So we see that for similar projects, if we made it just for budget funds, as it was done within initiative budgeting, then within initiative budgeting, the same effect is achieved with less funds. And of course, it is increasing credibility of municipal authority activities because real work is happening at municipal level, and we measure it with different indicators, including directly with polls, and we see that from the moment when this questionnaire includes evaluation of municipalities' activities in all these areas where these projects are implemented. So we see that as long as projects implemented and the trust is improving, and evaluation of municipalities' activities for improving environment and resolving some issues related with utilities and development, improvement of territories. So we think that future is with this project, and we implement it in different formats. I'd like to briefly share how we work today and what prospects we see in the near future. Now, it's not only a standard project of supporting local initiatives that we implement with the help of the World Bank, and I'm glad to see colleagues from there. I'd like to thank them for their assistance, and we implement projects aimed at resolving some socially important problems. Like this year, before start of federal project for improving city territories, knowing the urgency of this, the citizens started the project like VII yards and backyards to make them in line, and it covers 120, 130 yards, and it says on principles of initiative budgeting. So I'd like to make our discussion more agile and dynamic. I have two questions. First, when we say that all municipalities take part in implementing this, how many of them you had to make it even with soft power? How fast they got involved in this process, and how much effort you had to spend at the beginning to engage them, work with initiative budget and for all municipalities, whether those were existing that didn't want to. No, really, we didn't have to persuade anyone after they seen the results of the experiment on territories, and we'll understand that municipalities are underfinanced and most consider it as a source of additional funds. How much money in addition you provided for initiative budget? Out of a Republican budget, we spent on 300 million. And how much to this 300 million, the total budget? The total budget, 450 million of all projects, 300 of them Republican budget, and 67%. And 10% is population and 10% sponsors. At companies operating on territories of municipalities, and 11-12% is funds of municipalities themselves. And second question, within priority project for improving environment that the government implements jointly, we have also common area improvements. And how many projects receive financing from the citizen? Not only priorities, but how many projects receive co-financing from citizens? Well, projects that we implement, all of them are co-financing. So no project of like urban amenities. I'd like to call attention of our participants to this panel, and that the government this year dedicate 20 billion rubles for financing a program of urban amenities and improvements and public services, and plus co-financing from the regions and municipalities, so plus 17. So altogether expenditures, and is too early to summarize this. It's about 40 billion, and not in all the regions. This program is accompanying with participation of citizen as co-financing or like labor contribution when they take part in activities on this urban development. And sorry for I have not introduced all the participants of the panel, and I'm glad to introduce our panelists. And Dmitry Azarov, Chairperson of the Council Federation Committee on Federal Structure, Regional Policies, Local Self-Governments and Affairs of the North, Chairman of the Council of Local Self-Government. Good afternoon. Well, Dmitry Azarov Leo was in charge of the city of Samara, and he's aware of the problems. We work together a lot, and I'd like to welcome this panel. Dima Vladimirovich, head of Initiative Budgeting Center, Minister of Finance, Russia. He's been for a few years. Vladimir, most active participant in our project, working team, and many proposals were prepared with his proposals were implemented by us. Elena Zabarova, Minister of the Government of Moscow, and work of Elena has been witnessed every day, and I hope you'll tell about experience of Moscow on involvement citizens in these tools like initiative budget and budget for citizens. Larisa Klinchenko, Deputy Chairman of the Government, Minister of Finance of the Stavropol Territory. Alexei Lavrov, just Deputy Minister of Finance of the Russian Federation. I represent the Prime Minister of the Government of Bashkortostan, Rustem Mardanov, and Kirill Nikitin, PwC Russia partner, the head of Laboratory of Tax Policy and Faculty of Economics. So they have the possibility to speak for experts and participants in today's panel, and I'd like to give the floor for exchange of experience. Deputy Government Minister of Finance of Stavropol Territory, Larisa Klinchenko. One of the first projects in Budget for Citizens implemented with the World Bank was implemented in Stavropol Territory. It was in 2007. It's been 10 years. So it's interesting to hear how life people changed in municipalities when implementing this project. What actually changed on the ground, and in terms of transparency of the budget, people's involvement and their co-participation. So thanks, welcome everyone, colleagues. Really 10 years is significant time to make some intermediate results. And for the beginning, I like to say that on the territory of Stavropol, this project will implement in 7 municipal regions as eastern part of the region, and as there, this project has been in operation 10 years. On the territory of our entity, it was spread in 2017. So we have good platform for comparison. What used to be in the east 10 years and what happened in other agricultural areas. In order for you to understand these numbers that I mentioned, why they're so important. So what is the east of the territory? The east is for those like decolonization went, and the temperature in the summer is you can boil eggs on the ground, and winter is minus 30 is very cold for the south, and believe me. And of course, people will understand 2006 when we tried to discuss this issue with Ivan Shulga, so the mood was there to run away from there, further away, so left to authority, say power was not a high level, say due to historic roots, and so the task was to change the situation. Unfortunately, we didn't know at the beginning to measure those indicators that we call long-term effects, the level of trust to authority, and due to lack of measurements at the beginning, we wanted to see what changed in 10 years in our toolkit. We have only statistics and how socioeconomic development of these territories and municipalities in comparison with other municipal areas. And we deselected cities out of the sample because clear the cities have different story. So what we had and was clear indicator the long-term effect, that's the number of population. So the trend in the regions for 10 years is to the growth, 4.5%. In the east is always to reduction trend. So today this growth trend is not existing like in the territories, but if in the period of 2007 to 2014, the reduction trend was at least 1.2 to 1.5% a year. Then starting from 2014, reduction of this rate of population is not more than 0.6%. So we see it's stabilizing in terms of population. Migration loss is a statistical indicator to 2014. See, we implemented this project for 6 years. On average, was 400,000 population left the territory per year. Starting from 2014 is not more than 2,000 people, and 2016 less than 1,000. So reduction of this trend is very important indicator for us. So the indicator that we were not able to explain. So average salary, one person, one territory growth of salary to 30% for this period of 10 years on this territory, 280%. And significant growth for the last 3 years and approaching average indicator over the territory. So we tried what else to show, what indicator to show to change of quality of life. People would not build houses where they don't want to live, so we looked at the indicator of individual home ownership and on the territory 2006-2016, homes in the east plus 46%, on other agricultural areas is minus 21%. So people build houses and they don't plan to leave. So after that, we started to look at the birth rate and plus 1 percentage point to 13, and on average 14 in the east. So those indicators of socioeconomic changes on the territory of these agricultural populated areas, and witness that changes happen. And also was good indicator for us as improving business activity, and if there is decretion of physical this without legal entity, then in the east there is growth tendency. So for us is also important indicator. People are dealing and show activity, build houses, migration loss, different trends than on average over the entity. As a result, we think that by this project of local initiative support, and we didn't have the terminology like that, the whole image of village, rural area changes, and it's important for colleagues who work and definitely provide opportunity to take part in this competition for all. When the same populated area becomes the winner like 10 times during 10 years, it's a totally different residential area, and they have everything for these 10 years. They have children grounds and sport grounds and viaducts and lighting, and it's a different face of village and different quality of life, and we hope that's a different sentiment to life. Thank you, Larissa. Well, actually, the whole city of state governorship, including municipalities, there are some topics is money and HR, and when you get involved people in decision making, these important items, they understand that their opinion matters, so they become more active, suggest their own agendas, and with a different energy, and they respond to those initiatives that implement by authority and problem in our quality management, governorship. People do not respond to initiatives that we offer. They either don't believe in it or are close to it because they're not sure that their energy will provide any result. Well, Moscow for last years have been actively implementing formats of relationship with people, including issues of finance and distribution of funds. And in Moscow, you not only vote for the projects offered by the government, but you can offer your own projects. Actually, the topic that we discuss and the projects for initiative budget is additional burden for bureaucracy, and it's a hurdle. Like if you're in Moscow with your budget, like why do you need to implement it? And what is the effect in you receiving your work out of this involvement of people to this work? So the floor to Elena. Well, Mikhail, I agree with you, and definitely, experience of Moscow is different from the experience of other regions, and it is natural because initiative budgeting in major megapolis cannot be developed on the same methods as in small cities and regions, where when the citizens meet and you can discuss how to spend certain funds to resolve issues. In city agglomerations, where you have to take into account millions of citizens' opinions, and the mechanism of budgeting is not possible without IT platform. And Moscow goes along this way. Most important, I want to emphasize it, that in our city, not only implement initiative budgeting, and I'm not afraid of this, is initiative governorship management, when the people really have the opportunity to offer initiative and vote for the best options, and the city takes for itself the obligations and guarantee that supported most important ideas will be implemented definitely and financed within state programs. Here in Moscow, the initiative of our mayor Sergei Sobyanin created innovative system of Moscow of city solutions that enables Moscovites to take part in city management and gives the opportunity to the power to get the feedback, constant feedback, and take into account citizens' opinion. And this became available due to 3 electronic services. First, platform for crowdsourcing. Second, for holding electronic voting, active citizen. And third, portal to take into account claims and complaints. On the crowdsourcing platform, we discuss, important topics for the city. It allows interested people, to get together and come up with ideas, discuss, comment, and cut off those irrelevant. And the topics for discussion, specific projects are not set by the government, and only the topics are set by the government. And within this, the initiative proposals are being developed, and projects, and the topics for discussion also happens based on the feedback of the citizens. And during this crowdsourcing platform existence, we had 13 large-scale crowdsourcing projects. This project, Moscow Polyclinic, Moscow Library, organizing bus routes, active agent, and even kids' vacations. So those areas moved to the platform for electronic voting, active citizens. For now, we have registered 1,900,000 users on active citizen, and for 3 years of this platform, more than 2,500 voting were held with 130, like large number of Muscovites taking part. And during this voting, took into account more than 80 million opinions of citizens for specific issues of the city. For example, on the platform of active citizen was voting and electronic referendum on so important and landmark projects as renovation of housing farm project, my street, like million of trees, and out of those services, our city's portal is related that take into account complaints and proposals of city for implemented projects. And during this portal existence, we resolved more than 2 million problem issues. And I'll give a short example how it works. In Moscow, implement capital healthcare programs, one of the programs in the city in the beginning 2015. Citizens offered Muscovites.
The Moscow authorities suggested to the Moscow residents to provide their proposals on the improved health services. On the crowdsources website, 76,000 Moscow residents delivered their opinion how improve the polyclinic's performance. And this was put also on the active citizen website. And the projects, the proposals that had gathered the majority of the votes, they were turned into converted into specific events of the Moscow healthcare. They were also reflected in the respective Moscow budget. We can say right now that many of the people's initiatives have been put in practice. In particular, we have now the salaries for on-duty doctors. We have also off-day medical services. Also, SMS messages come on the delivery of drugs to pharmacies, or the services of the electronic diagnostic sample mailing. And also it is sent also by SMS. And also the ambulance was organized, and other vehicles that provide services to remote regions. On our city website platform, there is an ongoing control over the implementation of these innovations. I'd like to reiterate that the electronic services I mentioned are being used to manage the city, also with regard to the allocation of the budgetary funding, not only in decision-making on general city issues, but also on specific district, or even yard, or even a city compound, or neighborhood. We have 125 district councils. They are like the territorial administrative bodies that are paid by about 10,000 billion rubles. These funds are allocated considering the opinion of local residents in a specific area. The funds are provided as decided by the municipal legislatures. And at the initiative of the local residents, minimum 10% of these funds are being allocated, more than 1 billion rubles every year. Well, these funds are used to make improvements in the yards, neighborhoods, also sports grounds or children's playgrounds are organized, leisure areas, also barrier-free zones for the disabled. Well, at the first phase of funds allocation, proposals are collected from Moscow residents using both internet sites and offline. That is traditional. Also, letters are filed with their wishes as voiced by the residents' assemblies. These proposals are also put up on the Active Citizen website, and then voting takes place not among all the Moscow residents, but specific district residents. And the subject matter, the agenda of such voting could be both selecting the grounds, the respective ground, or a project local residents would like to implement. For instance, what to construct in a yard, or either a green lane, or children's playground, or a ground for the aged, or maybe set up lights somewhere, or even the breeds of bushes. We discuss shrubs, we discuss what to plant there. And also the projects that won the largest support, the most votes, they become mandatory for the city authorities, and control over such implementation is exercised by the third electronic service, that is our city service. Now, to wrap up, I'd like to say that initiative-based budgeting is rather a generic notion, but contingent on a specific context. Various methods should be used of this initiative-based budgeting, which is taking place also during our discussion. I absolutely agree with you. We do not have a jack of all trades, a universal tool, the budget for the citizens, initiative-based budget, or these are complementary arrangements that sort of create a cloud of involvement and transparency just for common people, for the complicated budgeting, both federally or municipality or a village. Elena, can you evaluate? Can you estimate how much is being spent annually by the Moscow government on the projects that are suggested specifically by Moscow residents? Well, this number changes. Well, it's dozens of percentage, dozens, not just 1%. But these initiatives are becoming specific events, activities for the public program, and we finance the public program without dividing the sources. Minimum 25% of direct involvement of Moscow residents. But regarding the projects, the individuals have suggested the initiative, not the discussions they had taken part, but resulting from the proposal that were supported finally by the authorities, with the respective amendments made to the public programs and financed finally. Well, the land improvement projects, the 100% financed, considering local residents' opinions. Well, Elena, no. Well, probably will answer this question later. As a matter of fact, I haven't received the adequate answer, whether local residents' opinion is considered in the Moscow budget expenditures. It is one of the priorities. But interestingly, how the Moscow government finances, where individuals have suggested, there haven't been any project, not those suggested to be discussed by the authorities, but were forwarded by common people, and resulting from some debates, they were accepted for implementation. Just think over, please. We'll probably get back to the issue. But I agree, yes, one third of the expenditures go through the broad hearings. Minimum 25%, we suspect. Yeah, they're based on direct initiatives by local residents. Dmitry, the Council of the Federation is the chamber for the regions. But it's important not only how local governance is promoted, but also how our NGOs perform in local governance development. In Bashkortostan, 100% local municipalities are involved. The national average is not more than 20%. Moscow suggests its own mechanism of using new information systems and technologies. Access to the internet is not ubiquitous. There are some municipalities where there are communication-related issues, and the very culture of using new IT differs significantly between the regions. How should we do it? That is, taking the example of Bashkortostan, 100% of the municipalities using modern IT, and the traditional ones through direct interface of individuals and municipal leaders be more involved in budgeting. What should be done for that? To develop some general common rules, replicate the allocation of the funds. What's the perspective here? Using these tools by the municipalities that have not been involved so far. Thank you, Mikhail. I'd like to congratulate dear colleagues you on this professional holiday today, the day of the financier, which in fact has been celebrated longer than the jubilee of the socialist revolution. Dear colleagues, I'd like to thank also Allocation for the invitation to participate, and you, Mikhail, for the moderation. That the minister personally holds this discussion and emphasizes how important and significant this issue is. It's also important to me, thanks individually to you, Mikhail, and how you have tailored this discussion. That our colleagues have spoken, those representing the regions have shared their unique experience that may apply also in other municipalities and regions. I have seen some colleagues have come up from the Orenburg region, who are also winners in the Ministry of Finance nomination. They can also deliver their experience here. I will also try to tell you how it develops in various regions. But firstly, I would say it's a highly relevant issue, not only the efficient allocation of the budgetary funds, but most importantly, the involvement of our citizens in local governance. I think it's critical in the framework of today's discussion. I'd like to remind you that as recent as on August the 1st, the President held a conference, and he said that the proactive participation in decision-making is the basis of democracy, while the municipal level is most close to the individuals, to local residents, so to get feedback, it should be the priority. No, dear colleagues, we are here at the Financial Forum, and oftentimes the main issue of local governance is the lack of funding. But I disagree with Alexei. I believe that the main obstacle in local governance is what Mikhail said, that the low involvement of people in local issues. These critical things, sometimes the unraised, unused potential. Also regarding initiative-based budgeting, we still have a huge effort ahead in order for the municipalities to involve them as far as possible in this process. So I'd like to apologize before the government of the Bashkortostan how to engage everybody. The number of such municipalities has reduced in Bashkortostan. It's a joke, dear colleagues. I know what the big systemic effort is underway in Bashkortostan, and also in many regions, including the neighboring ones, which allows to secure a result. Dear colleagues, we have heard here such fashionable words like crowdfunding and outsourcing and so on. We will never have it. The heads of the public services are elected people. You would like to involve people outside Moscow, at least. I would suggest that you use more understandable words like involvement, co-participation, also co-work, We also enjoy some old experience in all these areas. Some experts say the pioneering experience was seen as early in the 9th century. At the dawn of statehood of this country. We can also recall the unique experience of Soviet time with regard to labor resources, self-taxation, and a huge experience has been gained by the regions. Well, briefly, for instance, over the past 2 years, there has been a triple growth of the completed projects in initiative-based budgeting. Triple times the past year. So we are moving in the right direction. And the efforts, including the open government, Mikhail is involved in it together with the finance ministry. They're in high demand. Dear colleagues, now just some things about the Tula Region experience. It was the winner of the best practice competition of the country between the regions. Was held by the Council of Federation. The initiatives were forwarded by local resident conventions. They are selected on a competitive basis. I mean, the projects, and also internet voting is used in Russia. The Kirov region, they perform very differently. The municipalities set up public boards that allocate local budget funds based on initiative-based proposals by local residents. The local initiative-based programs can also be regional. In the Yaroslav region, there is a project. We do it together. About 650 million rubles were allocated for that last year. I admire the experience of Bashkortostan with their 300 million, but in Yaroslav, 650 million were allocated. This project is put through the filter of public hearings in each municipality and put up for consideration by the regional public board. In the Perm region, which is the pioneering region that adopted the bill on initiative-based budgeting, where definitions provided not only of the key notions, but also project financing mechanisms were determined, and it was adopted that annually minimum 1/10 of the revenues of the budget are allocated, and also public boards are set up there for a competitive selection. The projects it put up to be judged by local authorities. It's a mandatory requirement. That is, including the participation of local residents, local communities. Well, huge number of examples could be brought up in order, but to involve people, we should replicate those. The All Russia Local Governance Council also organized a competition for best practices. One of such initiatives was supported for self-taxation. I think this competition was large scale, and we can thank now the federal government that the best municipal practice competition is being held also federally, and also a section of the finance ministry. Probably there are some performance indicators. As for self-taxation, the key indicator there is the share of co-financing by local residents. But we understand sometimes we need to encourage and mention the activity of the people, but not always measure everything with the monies. Of course, dear colleague, the comfortable urban environment project, which was supported by the president, and I believe it is focused not only on the improvements of our cities and countries, also on involving our individuals. The president said and confirmed it at the council meeting, only the individual opinions should be considered. And you can see that this project reflects as a drop of water that all mechanisms of community involvement could be used, starting from project selection, joint design, the participation of individuals, and public control over. I would say that over 40 billion rubles worth is the budgetary funding, 25.6 million, 16.6 billion rubles from the regions, not to count the funds that are invested by individuals in 22 regions. labor involvement or financial participation of individual is mandatory in planning, even for the minimum set of activities provided for by the resolution. But the size of co-financing varies from 5 to 21%. This project allows us to progress, to fast forward, to resolve also the issues we are discussing here. I'm sure it will give quite a good impetus. And the people will indeed have an opportunity to implement their ideas and plans and be proactive in both their future city development design and area management, which only with involvement of the community can be solved, can be called the self-governance. Dear colleagues, we have considered the whole set of issues at the Presidential Council focused on community involvement, including initiative-based budgeting. We also heard probably to formalize these ideas federally. We have some examples like the Perm region. They have passed their own bill. This is probably the case when a pathway has been laid, the trail has been blazed, and we should think over. It's a debatable issue. But it's quite possible that for Mikhail, well, in order to create the proper conditions to involve as many municipalities as possible, we have more than 20,000. Probably the federal bill should consider, at least like in a framework, all these initiatives. I think it's a noble thing to allocate. It's a paying initiative to allocate the funds. But this work allowed us to overcome the community indifference, their dependency focus, and we give assignments to the municipalities and the whole federation. So this project is of high value. All those who deal with it as subject focused, not on paper, can say not only as much fun there are, but how many people were involved. And I would like sincerely thank all of you. We know, and I believe that all Russia local governance site should be like a locomotive, a testing ground to implement such practices at our municipalities. Well, in Bashkortostan, they are successful. So the question is, what should we do in order to implement it in full in other regions? Why some regions? At the municipalities, there are just single cases or participatory initiative-based budgeting used. Why, for many municipalities, the open budget, the budget for individuals, is an undesirable tool? Why there is a resistance by the leaders of such municipalities? Because self-governance implies the power of communities, individuals, and their participatory effort. That is why we relegate this authority to the municipalities. Sometimes it's not supported by adequate funding. But as of now, the resources that are being allocated and being spent at that level certainly should be more transparent. With regard to per capita spending. You have mentioned 22 regions that are necessarily focused on community involvement, but not everybody. Why not everybody is doing it? 40 billion is about 50% of the required funding for improvements. We do not have adequate budgets to allocate all those, support all of them. We'll continue this program next year, and we'll snowball it year on year, and we'll be able to significantly improve the environment, living environment for people, for the compounds, yards. And although we allocate funds only in this amount, then probably priority should be given solely to those who co-participate either as labor or financially. The question here, the issue here is not only community involvement. When improvements are paid for common people in a yard, and why it's why it's ruined, that's not a question to the community. It's something alien. They have not adopted it. But when a person has paid just a penny, then no vandals would ruin all of that. There will be quite a decent order because it's your own. You have given up your cent, your penny for that. So next year, when we'll implement our land improvements program, we should also involve the local governance councils, give them the exclusive or top priority, and provide them adequate funding for their facilities, projects that are financed or where individuals are involved. I absolutely agree, and I would undersign each of your words. I'm sure that the conditions for funding, probably as of November the 1st, up November the 15th, some summary will be given with new proposals taken on by December the 1st. So probably in November, the 20th days of November, we'll have adjusted the methodology of funding to make it mandatory. I try not to bring up the Samara city experience. I should probably get disused to that. But thanks to the federal municipal funding council, well, several days before the State Duma meeting, we held a forum at the VNH exhibition, and the premier said there for the first time that probably we should co-finance improvements from the federal budget. Why do I mention the Samara experience? We started it in 2010 on a competitive basis. One of the preconditions was that people were supposed to have done something on their own. But starting the third year of this competition, we made it mandatory. I mean, financial co-payment. These just pennies, just we should not start over just beans and beans. We should start with minor thing. The project we implemented in the local compounds, the projects are still intact. Those that can be implemented without these approaches 2 years ago, these yards were ruined. It's a good demonstration of the statements you have made. I'm sure we create proper conditions for that. We'll draw the bottom line in the near future of the first stage of this program implementation. We should probably adjust our approaches, and I'd like to involve the All Russia Council in this effort in order to review all the past experience, positive and negative, to implement the project in order to in 2018 we would get higher quality results. When implementing the projects on the budget together with the Ministry of Finance, we set up the Center of Initiative-Based Budgeting at the Research Institute, which is led by the President, who helps us promote this project. We should provide support of quality methodological framework for that, also to collect best practices, to evaluate the performance and effectiveness of our efforts, so that based on not only our common understanding of the outcomes, but also based on the good regulations and the methodologies, should support the regions in developing the skills in budgeting and apply these tools. And how the next phase, what's your vision for the next phase of the mechanisms that are being implemented? And what primary objectives you can see regionally and municipally to implement the initiative-based budgeting? Thank you, Mikhail. Well, I would rather start off with, I'll certainly revisit this issue. But firstly, I'd like to focus you on, the Moscow Financial Forum is becoming sort of a lawmaker, in a sense, a lawmaker a fashion maker. Probably fashion is irrelevant as a notion here, but as recent, as far back as a decade ago, even more, we organized the first open budget initiative, took it on, the open budget. Some 5, 7, or 6 later, another budget emerged for the individuals, for our local residents. And presently, well, by now we have gained quite an extensive database on that and the best practices. I've heard today the smart budget notion from the head of the Sberbank. I'm sure that a new time is coming, a new notion, which sets quite serious challenges for us.
And those challenges in front of us, and initiative budgeting and its development in the near years, I'd like to call your attention to two key challenges that we encounter today. First is related to the fact that our initiative budgeting has become fashionable, and it became the notion widely spread, known, and we achieved that this word has been used even by those who don't understand its meaning. However, we encountered that recently the competition has been over projects of initiative budgeting for all the previous years. The portal Budget for Me, excellent competition, almost 300 projects were submitted, excellent projects, and most of them we know personally and we understand what has been achieved. However, most votes, we had two sets of votes, we had 25 shortlists, and those got by electronic voting, and those org committee was selected with key experts in this area. And we've seen that the first three projects are not even related to initiative budgeting at all. But those projects who receive a lot of votes, and these are beautiful, like beautiful kindergarten, lyceum, we're not against it. These are beautiful projects, but they will be done not based on the initiative budgeting. It's just different. And we more often encounter that under initiative budgeting, unfortunately. Many projects are related to that are really about something else. Yeah, this made us to be more careful in terminologies, and we understand now that in Russia and around the world, very active development that we call people involvement in territorial development and public infrastructure. You can call it whatever, and within this large process, there's a place for initiative budgeting. We know some practices of initiative budgeting improved in this country. Really, initiative budgeting became unique country practice of Russia. But that's one of the instruments, one of the tools that we need to learn to use, and because it's based on some procedures that didn't come up by chance. They were piloted and appropriated, and we know what's behind it and how they operate. And there are other forms, and end of last year, beginning of this, we had to encounter, and I know that everybody knows about that, with the scale. And then the message of the president that was mentioned today was said about participation of citizens and decision-making related to them and citizens' participation. So what happened slightly later? The government decision was not about participation, but consideration of citizens' opinions. And the scale from consideration to participation is a large number of procedures that enable people to take part and authorities to consider these opinions. I don't want to say that something bad or good, and both is taking place and is valuable. But really, we have started to learn that the scale of considering people's opinion is significantly different. We cannot reduce it, and we really teach these practices, which is called initiative budgeting, because they see that those effects that Larissa Anatolyevna discussing based on Stavropol region development, they are results of initiative budgeting that was implemented in Stavropol, and that's the first challenge that we have to deal with, and we don't want initiative budgeting to become everything. And second is related to the fact that we approached a very important milestone, and that's our unique Russian experience of government regulation and government support measures for citizens in this process. And it's not a simple story. We learned experience of other countries and see that Russia's experience is unique, as there's no experience of government. See, almost all entities of Russian Federation have been implementing initiative budgeting based on state programs, including and moreover, Ulyanovsk region, Katerina is nodding, and they were the first on the path to call initiative budgeting regional priority project. You say about Perm region, yeah, excellent experience. It's excellent that they went along this, but you know how many problems with this legislation. We're not sure that's the best way for the region, and we all for this experience and need to help consultants to grow it, and with time there will be legislation. And on the federal level, we don't need to hurry with law. We lack experience, and would like to have this law. Maybe it will make our life easier, but we understand that it's not an easy task. And in conclusion, I really mentioned that this extremely important story about state regulation this year, and I hope, Mikhail Anatolyevich, that will not disappear from the government commission by results of this year. Then when we submit for discussion these programs, and in the Ministry of Finance, we started discussing of this sub-program, and I call your attention that on this table there are proposals for this program. Can take it over, and because we started discussion of this document, and we really hope discussing it end of December. But we already started the object of attention of international experts, and our experience is really unique. And there's a large group is coming to Ufa in September. Will be a BRICS forum, like citizens' involvement in public infrastructure development, and I'm gratitude to the Bashkortostan government that they supported this and enabled this forum. And I'd like to have all of them, all panelists, take part in this. It will be really first and a large-scale event where we present our experience not only for Russian participants but for international experts. And people are coming that created this and know a lot about citizens' participation, and that we are just approaching something. Okay, thank you. Well, here you supported Dmitry Igorovich that mentioned in his speech that implementing this mechanism is very important to be clear, simple, in terms of for the citizens explanation and skills development for people that want to engage. And it's important not to complicate this process and not to complicate people in terminology and mechanism, and have to be transparent. And people at the level of perception and understand what is offered and how they can deal with it and what they can get and make it comfortable. Otherwise, the diversity and wide spectrum of this terminology definition can confuse people, and people have to come and tell their opinion, and somewhere via internet, some when they make the meetings of the people. And when we developed main proposals and methodology for people's involvement in the projects, comfortable environment, and had discussions how to make met on new technologies and internet, online, and whether they're able to be a good guide here. And most experts and regions representatives, they say that, well, some specific people unbiased when they until they come to the yard and start speaking to the people of this region, this house, and nobody will pay attention neither to internet opportunities. And it's important to represent this mechanism correctly. Large experience, we try to analyze, and colleagues say we become the subject for studies and research, and our experience is transferred. We have Shulga, is head of division of the World Bank, a good partner. I'd like to ask him as invited person, in terms of international experience, what are the opportunities and challenges for development of these tools in the region that we can get? Well, thanks, Mikhail. That I'd like to say that the Russia looks unique. Budget initiative became developed from below. We didn't enforce this ideology top down, and regions started to take part. They were initiative. Important is the second part of the medal, that this project received support from the top, and for development initiative budgeting implemented currently by the Ministry of Finances, thanks to and Alexei, who's in charge, and this matching these two vectors gave the opportunity to adapt very fast and get practice from below and spread it at the national level. And we had a situation that for 2 years we involved almost half of the country, and that's a unique experience. Those experts who come into UFA and not only talk about their experience, but also they come in to learn from us. And this approach is really national. Very important and interesting, and this provides great opportunities. And for this short time, we can go through the path that many countries, Latin America, went through for 20, 30 years. We can do it for 2 years. So around the world, there are interesting practices that enable to engage new topics like initiative budgeting in public infrastructure, in tourism, models of initiative budgeting in cities. And we have the opportunity to involve new audiences, projects for youth, for school children, and we have the tools for adapting and spreading these practices. So a couple of words about challenges. And now I repeat here, words of my colleagues. Main challenge is participation of population. Most effects of initiative budget that we're talking about are growing based on the participation of population. The effect is when they come to the people and you ask what you want a road, lighting, or what, and they say, oh, we were asked, and when people co-finance, they become owners of this project. They start to look and what's happening, and so if you remove from this participation of the citizen, real participation of the people, then no effects of initiative budgeting. So for a question to come back, and why there is a temptation now with a large growth to appoint one person in charge of initiative budget, and then he will make a report like how many projects are implemented to 50 or 780 or 1 million. But whether people participated, yes, of course they did, and but this kind of practices with like people's participation not real, they would be alive 1 year or 2, and then they will be closed, and the effect will be negative because the whole idea will be discredited, compromised. And so problem of citizen participation is a serious work, and people have competencies, but if you do this work, you have to do it really, like in Bashkortostan, I mentioned. It's a large project center created where people work, and 10 plus 10 people hired for heavy periods of time. So all these people are involved for project support. And we have good program there. Laureates also, they create a special project center dealing with this. So main challenge, if I try to formulate, is really like agreeing with, is creating institutional infrastructure to support these practices and ensure real participation of citizens and population in the process. Thank you. I absolutely agree with you that this area of our work, where reporting and regulating measuring results would be more harmful rather than beneficial, and annihilate initiative people show and transform it into bureaucratic statistics where no real people will be. But what will be the result of this? Of course, creating regional resource centers, because the country is large, practices are variable, and people try to reinvent the wheel. And I'd like to call Dmitry Igorevich with a proposal and to think about the model when the All Russia Council on Self-Governance, together with the open government and some regions, would be able to create this constant online platform where analyzing best practices and representing it in the format able to scale up in other regions, because it's not difficult. It's like simple algorithms work here and people operate it, but some they don't know what to start with. What should be the first step, second, and then they will find their own way. Very often they don't understand this initial stage that should have been taken by the people and this mutual energy that can move it in the right direction. But for this, these simple examples and practices are needed that will be available. So let's think about creating this joint. And good example is Bashkortostan can involve Ministry of Finance, and it's not large. We should create online resource center, and then we can take the experience of Moscow as a super advanced region and experience where people resolve it without any IT at meetings. But to have a meeting, need to apply certain technology. People need to know what to start this work from, so that they are not afraid of this work. And I think that for the next half a year it's possible to do it, and it's not worth much money. Let's think about it, and it will be good support to implement our projects. So Alexei Lavrov spending a lot of time in implementing this project, and for the third year I'm asking his colleagues and employees of the Ministry of Finance to dedicate additional award. Was he awarded additional bonus for the budget for citizens? Not yet. Well, we have a meeting of government commission, and it's thrown to give instructions, and these are authorities of ministries. And for the third time, we recommend the Ministry of Finance to give a bonus of employees and implement the budget for citizens. So if you don't get bonuses, why do you need? And what the effect for the Ministry of Finance? Well, you can come up with an initiative to change the budget, to initiative budget for bonuses. And using this opportunity, thanks to you and your team, you make a lot of work and are not impartial, and not because you are instructed to, because you understand the demand for this work and you see the results, and in spite of lack of bonuses, and results are not worse. So this Ministry of Finance, what's the effect? Well, we see example of project approach. Ideal, doesn't require money. It grows by itself and generate results. And no project offices required. So actually, the large comprehensive project can be called priority open budget. It includes several parts. Was first diagnostics of Ministry of Finance. They regularly go through various international organizations. For the last 10 years, in the index of openness, we went up from 56 to 11th, and it's all achieved with paperwork, and when the international experts are rating what is lacking, and we find it, and we close this. And it's good, however, no large effect. Why not? Well, similar job is done by entities of Russian Federation. They have their own size, open budget, they have the rating of openness of budget. And in this forum in the Krasnoyarsk Krai last year, Orenburg paid gratitude as open. And so what the problems are? There are a lot of information in the budget for the citizen, adapted form, but citizens are not interested in this, and all statistics of entering these sites are not really good. Whether we are not submitting it well, or people are very far from these issues, and we probably need citizens who will be interested in this budget and will be responsible taxpayer and consumer of budget services. And we have results of the project of budget learning. We have to start with the school, and there's some blocks of coursework being approved in 4 regions, including Moscow, has been implemented. I think in a few years it will become part of school curriculum, and people live with knowledge how it works. But we should not wait for that, because the school children can forget it when they don't use it. So the project of initiative budget has this absolutely added value, which is much higher, and emerged platforms for improvement, etc. All this improvement can be done with traditional budget methods. We have local deputies for this, and financial agencies can prioritize, etc. But there will be no effect, and the effect is that when citizens select, they encounter problems immediately of selection. A little money, but they need to make a lot. Some children playground, other sport playground. And first minister said about budgeting as art, but he didn't finish this citation. He says that budgeting is the art of even and equitable distribution of disappointments, because there will be no enough money for everyone, and because some will say priority, some will say not, and so people need to understand the budget cannot be spread like this. And on these simple examples that have this resource and what we're gonna do, people try to understand that it turns out that at the top level, even at the local budget level, has the same problem. We'll need roads, salaries, but no resource. So this is the first effect, that citizens become more competent in relation to the budget overall. Second, resource not enough. Let's find it first in the local budget, where everyone pays taxes, although not large, like property tax. We can find sponsors and sometimes make voluntary contribution. So in our budget system, as specific features, the feelings of taxpayer detached. They don't know where these taxes go. There's some account, it is distributed. You can ask citizens, nobody will tell which amount, which budget was paid. But need to build this feeling, and based on these specific projects, when people like share and by the way say, oh, we paid a tax on land, and what happened? Maybe it went to schools, maybe improvements and urban development, but I'm sure. So we consider this openness of budget and people's involvement, and without it, the budget is not going to be effective. And so we think that it goes beyond the budget area for this project, and to continue on taxes. When the minister said the art of statue making out of the stone, like, say there are specialists who doing it, not only financially, on deputies, experts, many people like involved in the budget process. But who will evaluate this work? Who will say that the statue is good or not? should be done by citizens. I can evaluate it only when they know how difficult it was and whether this process is not easy. So, if finally this effect come up and they can be measured statistically, that means that the Ministry of Finance was right to join this project and will support it in the future. Alexei, in 2012, the work was finished in development of strategy 2020. Within this work was large-scale sociological studies regarding priorities of people and in terms of defining main areas of budget expenditures and priority areas of budget expenditures. So how in terms of simple citizens need to spend federal budget? How much money should be spent for education, healthcare, like defense, social services, infrastructure development? And so when this data was submitted and a comparison was made with how priorities of the budget determine, it was obvious that in terms of common citizens, the priorities of budget expenses and actual expenses are significantly different. In which part VII responsible for budget process takes into account citizens and taxpayer priorities, determining priorities of budget expenditures? Well, the answer in no way. It will be short. I'd like to find out about the methodology of this issue. It was about federal budget. Of course, 1/3 of expenditures for defense, 1/3 debt service and transfers to the region, and little for education and healthcare. Need to know priorities of the budget of extended government. To say that, need to explain what is extended government budget. It's out of budget funds, entities of federation. So if we ask this question, in which sense it is in line, I think we would be closer to citizens' priority, because 1/3 of expenses, social expenses. The total budget of the country is social oriented. That's not military, first one, and much more in education and healthcare. However, this method, like how to account for interests and preferences of the people, it seems like it works well at the local level. When concerns they can do today a bridge and then the entrance, then the backyard. So there are no adopted obligations at any budget, and these obligations, 90% at any are salaries and utilities and projects and programs. Only 10-15% can say about new projects, and federal level even less. So we need to set the questions clearly and at the level of the regions and communities, districts, and explain to the people that have a large amount of social state obligations that the budget have to perform in the first place. Whatever happens should be defense, education, healthcare, and then we can discuss in which forms and what we can do with those funds. So we'll come back to this issue. To reconsider the budget, the Federal Assembly. Okay, understanding this difficulty for the state of resolving the issues of federal budget and consolidated budget, would be right for the Ministry of Finance of the Russian Federation regularly hold sociological and studies to have the understanding how citizens see the priorities of state expenditures, and this would be good orientation for policymakers and for decision making. It will be a format of considering people's opinion in the process at a high level. A large spectrum of international practice was encountered when we developed and implemented the project of budget for citizens. and other mechanism of this transparent budgeting. And I would like to ask Kirill Nikitin, what is out of what is implemented today is unique, and what is the effects of implementing this mechanism, the view of expert from the outside on a large agenda? Well, thanks for this question. My specialty is tax policies, and I've been listening to this discussion. Before that, I spent a month traveling the regions and speak to the leaders, participatory initiative as budgeting, as Bashkiria, as Snowbor, and St. Petersburg experimental first city federal that started experimenting with this budgeting. And I'd like to say that this impression that has its own participatory vision, I mean, in the regions. And the range, as was mentioned, is very wide. What is called and what's worth calling participatory budgeting, in my opinion. And it seems to me I would speak not about the options, but the elements. First, as me, especially as tax budget policy, is clear that things related with taxation is a very specific story, and this is our response to some born defects of our budget and tax system. This is first is extremely low informative element when the people don't know at all.
Году, когда мы начали формировать эту концепцию ответственного налогоплательщика, она была гораздо меньше, но осведомленность о том, какие деньги, куда я плачу, сколько из них тратится, на что, она практически отсутствовала. И с этой точки зрения действительно было, мы, собственно, сегодня в словах выступающих слышим разговор о том, что бесплатно участвовать своими деньгами или распределять чужие деньги. Я напомню, что вообще-то во всех уровнях бюджетной системы чужих денег нету. Это все деньги граждан и все деньги предприятий. И с этой точки зрения этот элемент, на мой взгляд, самообложения, это все-таки он от дефицитности, от недостаточности средств. И я думаю, что с развитием экономики, с выправлением дисбалансов между уровнями бюджетной системы и дисбалансов между налоговыми полномочиями и расходными обязательствами, мы постепенно, наверное, от практики самообложения откажемся, поскольку у нас граждане будут распределять в тех или иных формах те деньги, которые они и так в обязательном порядке, в соответствии со статьей Конституции о том, что каждый обязан платить законно установленные налоги и сборы, отправляют в бюджет. А если, знаете, при этом я бы вспомнил, вы знаете, известный термин, или точнее концепцию 2012 года Натальи Зубаревич, профессора, о том, что у нас 4 России, да, о том, что есть Россия крупных городов, Россия средних городов промышленных, Россия села, скажем так, и отдельно она еще выделила Северный Кавказ и Южную Сибирь, да. Может говорить о том, что если для сельского варианта партиципаторного бюджетирования важным является этот элемент, для третьей этой России в ее классификации, важным является элемент самообложения, да, то, конечно, для городских вариантов палитры партиципаторного бюджетирования гораздо важнее, на мой взгляд, совершенно другая история. И здесь мы говорим уже не о российской специфике, а мы здесь говорим о специфике, на самом деле, современного этапа развития крупнейших городов, крупных городов. Говорим о том, что традиционные механизмы формирования власти, демократические механизмы формирования власти на местном уровне, на муниципальном уровне, они не только имеют, но, вероятно, уже достигли своего определенного предела. Не только, через 2 дня будут выборы в муниципальное собрание в Москве, да, и мы увидим там явку в 10, может быть, 15%. Это будет означать, что муниципальные собрания в городе будут сформированы...
В других крупных городах по всему миру.
Значит, большинство людей в формировании этих органов власти не будет принимать участие. Но вы абсолютно правы. Явка на последних выборах в Нью-Йорке 24%, в Лондоне высокая явка 35%, в Париже в районе 20 с чем-то процентов. С этой точки зрения мы говорим о том, что специфика урбанизированной городской среды заключается в том, что местная власть формируется меньшинством населения. И в этих условиях испытывает огромный информационный ресурсный голод с точки зрения того, чтобы действовать в интересах всего населения. И прежде всего, и в том числе действовать в интересах того сегмента населения, который активно формирует бюджеты, но при этом в выборах практически не принимают участие. И с этой точки зрения, вот в этом именно контексте, на мой взгляд, партиципаторное бюджетирование – это тот самый важнейший канал, дополнительный, второй резервный канал поступления информации, который позволяет вот этому кислороду информационному поступать в мозг местного самоуправления, в мозг муниципалитетов, поступать в разных формах. Поступать в форме кадрового ресурса. Да? Мы видим о том, что в Сосновом Бору 10% местного совета – это бывшие участники группы по партиципаторному бюджетированию. Мы видим о том, что в местных администрациях в Башкирии, в подведомственных учреждениях, занимающихся реализацией проектов в Санкт-Петербурге, пришли люди, которые выдвигали эти проекты и пришли туда из партиципаторного бюджетирования. Мы говорим о том, что на слушание по регулярно проходящие, не раз в год, а регулярно проходящие слушания по партиципаторному бюджету, по бюджетированию, по проектам, приходит в среднем в 3 раза больше участников, чем на публичные слушания по всему бюджету. И то есть мы говорим о том, что фактически, вот мы вспомним вот эту модель, что местная власть опирается, избирается напрямую там, 10, 20, 25% населения, и вдруг мы говорим о том, что без всяких паллиативных инструментов в виде молодежных палат, общественных палат, каких-то еще искусственно организуемых объединений, вдруг местная власть через механизм партиципаторного бюджетирования начинает взаимодействовать с еще 20-30% населения, горожан, избирателей, которые, я подчеркну, или сельских жителей, которые на выборы не ходили, не ходят, не будут ходить. И, собственно говоря, может быть, и не нужно их заставлять ходить, на самом деле, потому что они не хотят этого. И вот с этой точки зрения, я думаю, что вот эффекты партиципаторного бюджетирования, они вот в этом, мы видим, что в международной все-таки практике в развитых городах, в развитых странах речь идет не о самообложении, а речь идет прежде всего о расширении вот этой базы, об инклюзивности процесса принятия решения по наиболее важным вопросам, прежде всего на муниципальном, на местном, на городском уровне. Здесь, мне кажется, в той же самой Москве, в частности, неплохо было бы...
Would be good. Moscow, it would be good to consider the experience primarily starting 2014 with another process were innovated in Paris. Paris, of course, is much smaller in population, but as for the size of the budget allocated and the level of the city and the number of projects and the system of the interface, including, all these forms, online, offline, and voting in the streets and using gadgets, and the methods of project forwarding and discussion, making decisions, I think we should look at this experience. Honestly, it was quite interesting to listen to the presentations by Elena, because as a Moscow resident, as a Moscow taxpayer, the one who is knowledgeable about local governance, prior to this forum, I mentioned, I discussed participatory budgeting with the chair of the Presnensky District Municipal Budgeting Board. I would say I have a cardinally different view about the scale of residents' involvement in participatory budgeting. I wouldn't say that call it as the incentivizing of the municipal councils, district councils, and to set the voting agenda, what color I should have for my local cinema theater. I'm joking. I wouldn't call it what our colleagues call participatory budgeting. It's a clear and interesting form of feedback, but I believe, well, I would assure you that we have in Moscow not only all the technology-related organization, technical and financial and other conditions, but there is a very high demand due to this low attendance in municipal governance. There is a high demand as a business case to create a more traditional, more intensive interface of the authorities with the residents in the form of participatory budgeting. So I would like to close at this point. Well, it's hard to disagree with Kirill. If every individual takes himself for an active and motivated taxpayer for the entire local public governance, with all public spending, so such tools as participatory initiative-based budgeting, they will certainly develop differently. Unfortunately, all the surveys and polls show that the culture of self-awareness of individuals as taxpayers who form the sources of the state's well-being. In fact, we have wrapped up the core of the discussion. I'd like to suggest to our panelists just answer one question regarding their specific performance due to the open budget, initiative-based budgeting, participatory budgeting. We can see here the people who participated in this project, both federally and regionally, also in local legislatures, in the coming year. What is the principal task in implementing these mechanisms and the project? Dmitry, please. The crucial one. What we already mentioned today, we are implementing a large-scale project on improvements, and I would reiterate, it's not critical to me, the improvements, but rather public awareness should be raised, public involvement, community involvement. We should only review these mechanisms for their quality and consider local opinions. We awarded one region today. I actually visit many cities and regions. I looked up the results of votation in election and results of voting. It's a very well-advanced city. But there is very low attendance in elections there. I say that you have a very good road. They say we don't need that. With this flyover, we did not need. You should have given us. We should have made here just put up a bench here, or which have repaired a road here. So this large-scale project, and the president has already ordered in the 3-year budget, the funds will be provided not less than, as the president said, than this year. I'd like to remind you that the municipal and regional programs have been approved for 5 years. So hopefully, this co-financing will come for 5 years from the federal budget. And we should certainly make use of it so that this primary task, primary objectives of the improved awareness of the people participation. And I'd like to thank you. Well, as I said, probably we should think over and decide whether make amends to the legislation on initiative-based budgeting in the current law. Let us assess the past experience. I always vote for that some law enforcement to apply, and apply it later. The public council is not something like the public chamber. They are highly experienced people here, highly professional, who have worked for long in executive agencies. We are well prepared for a calm, balanced decision-making and broad hearings, public hearings. Well, the nearest objective for the next year is budgeting mechanisms for the next year to include in the improvements program. And we'll verify it 1 year later. Elena? Moscow? One primary task for you is which one? Well, this is furthering urban decision-making system to involve more and more Moscow residents into city management and discussing with them a wider range of subject matters there. For me, as a financier, we need to improve our project for more openness in our budgeting, including our open budget portal. Rustam, Bashkortostan, a lot has been said about your republic. To me, what's being done in Bashkortostan is highly important. Could you kindly tell us what's the primary task for you there? The priority for us is expanding the area of this mechanism application. Next year, we plan to roll out it to elevator replacement, individual apartment-specific heating, if we even take only one priority, that we need to start implementing the income earning projects, including participatory budgeting, that is joint project implementation to generate income where at their sites. Very specific, thank you. Alexei, well, apart from bonus obtaining, this year we'll complete 2 projects, our joint projects with the World Bank, the initiative-based budgeting and budgetary literacy, and very thankful to the World Bank, because when all this subject matter was launched several years ago, I wasn't aware of that, unfortunately. And when I had learned about that, it was late to change something that has been done well. Our objective for the next year, that despite the completion of these 2 projects, well, the outcomes were put in practice. And secondly, we should find a form how further this practice. Mr. Wagen, I already mentioned we have drafted a comprehensive document, as we agreed to turn into a sub-program or a project of the public finance management. And I think this document will allow us to systemize the current effort, which is rather disintegrated now, and what Alexei has said. We need to retain what has been done by us together with the World Bank. This sub-program will help us go to a high level of this practice and will allow all the interested regions to join this process. Another important thing, currently, the program, we have not said it well, it's like by default. It's concentrated today at the municipal and regional levels. Presently, we cannot even take the courage to say that there is also wide space for budgetary financing federally. There are some countries that discuss with the communities. Portugal, for instance, first time ever 1 year ago, discussed how participatory procedures could help allocate part of the state budget. Well, there has been some experience gained. I'm not calling upon that, but I'm saying that we have public programs, public financing programs that where individuals, all individuals, local also should take part. At least should they think over at the level of methodology, how it would be appropriate to join our individuals to these sub-programs. What I see as most important, that is to adopt such a sub-program, to launch it next year, so that we could say that indeed a sustainable development of the initiative-based budgeting is irreversible. So I would wait for you, together with Alexei, in December at the meeting of the government board, and please think about the format of such a board meeting, so that it would be not just a bureaucratic meeting, but to invite also the proactive regions, probably hold the government board meeting in the field, in the regions, to hold broad discussions of your proposals. Larissa, Stavropol, you were one of the pioneers, your primary mission for the next year regarding participatory budgeting and the open budgeting. Well, I want to tell you a joke first before answering. Well, jokes are always welcome. Yeah, that's right. When it was asked to make a brief presentation, what that person answered in 2 words: the one who likes it, for the one who likes it. So I think this form of initiative-based budgeting, these forms vary a lot. Why did I recall this joke? I'd like to ask all the federal leaders, well, prior to making a decision on initiative-based budgeting, please do not squeeze anyone in a framework. I think the beauty of the many practices is that we have a very vast country, varied density of population, various municipality forms. Some have more district-related circumferences or more villages. That will be the beauty, the variety of such forms. Well, what about next steps? We have not covered yet the administrative centers of city districts. We walked from the minor to the large. We will expand the program from 200 up to 300 million rubles. That's the regional part of the budget. And most importantly, in this case, nothing, it's not what, but rather how local residents will participate in project selection. Thank you. That was our debate about participatory budgeting and the openness of the process and our objectives for the near future to implement the project. Thanks, everybody, all the panelists.